Welcome to another beginner's tutorial on Photoshop. In this case we're going to add some text. Now I picked this picture because I took it on bridge in Germany at Frankfurt, and there's literally thousands of these locks, so I took a zoom in here. I want to add some text that says "Locked in Love." Now press on the T button for text. I've chosen a colour here that is not quite white but just a tad of grey. Now the reason I've done this is because if we want to mess around with darkness and lightness, it's a lot easier to have a halfway in between. If it's totally black or totally white, you're very restricted in your lightening and darkening because it can only go one way or the other. If it's grey, you can do both, so that's the only reason why I picked a grey. Now when you click, it automatically creates a new text layer, and we're going to call it "Locked in Love." So, Locked in Love. I've already chosen a large size because it's a large picture. To change the size, select all your text. Be careful not to click anywhere other than the text because it will create a new layer. You can use this drop down here, but it only goes to 72, or you can click on the T. See the mouse change there, just slide to the right until you get the size that you want. Press on the arrow mover and you can move the text wherever you want. Now I want a slight angle on it. I'm going to place it there, but I want it pretty much aligned with that bridge. So by pressing Ctrl T, we can transform the text. Can move the central anchor point, which we're going to leave in the middle. Click away from the anchor point. You can also move the whole thing, but pretty pointless. What we want to do is rotate it slightly, so I'm going to rotate it until it's roughly in line with the bridge. Doesn't have to be exact, but just roughly. Hit enter and there we go. Now we could leave it like that, but it looks pretty nice. So there's a couple of effects that I want to add. So with your text layer selected, there's a little FX icon down here. Click on that. First off, we want to place a drop shadow, and because this is quite a large picture you can barely see the shadow, so we want to move it out a bit. I increase all of these a bit. I'm going to change the angle of light slightly more from the 45 degrees will do. You can see the distance there moves how far away the shadow is. Spread is how the shadow spreads out, and the size is how it feathers. So I like to keep these, unless you're going for some sort of weird effect, pretty much aligned like that. You can change the way the shadows. So that's just fading off. That's basically saying it's going from full on to nothing. To show you, that one would go on up and down like that, you can see, which again, unless you're going for some kind of effect, looks messy. I like to keep with that simple one for 99% of the time. Then we also want to create an inner glow, and although you won't see much at the minute, I'll show you why. Now a lot of people wonder what's the difference between opacity and fill, because they both seem to fade out the image in front. Well, fill only fades out what was originally there, not the effect. Opacity fades out both. I'll show you what I mean. If I reduce opacity, you can see everything's disappearing, the text and the effect. However, reduce fill, let's get that back up to 100. Reduce fill, and it's only what was originally there. In other words, the text that we typed is disappearing, the effects are staying in place, and now you can see that inner glow. So if we increase the fill slightly to about 35%, change the overlay to hard light, and that just lets us see slightly, it's the way the colours blend between what you've got above and behind, and I think that looks a little bit nicer than just the normal opacity. You want to move it so you don't cover up any of, you don't want it there, because it's covering up, you know, some of the stuff. So there's slightly less things to cover up, and that is how to add text with some effects. Reduce the opacity, change the overlay mode, and there you have it. Really, it's, you've probably seen it before everywhere in brochures. They have a little bit of a shadow, or they reduce the opacity so you can see through them a bit. Hope you enjoyed this one. Not perhaps the most interesting ever, but it's an important step to learn, especially the difference between opacity and fill, and how to add text that isn't just plain boring, how to rotate it as well. So I hope you learned something useful in this one, and we'll go for a more interesting one next time.